This is your stop. Get out, mister. Beat it, Buster. Beautiful drifter isn't a superpower.
Well, I knew this day would come.
Welcome!
What? Where am I?
One of us. One of Todd.
Actually,
one of Todd.
Todd, now that
two of Todd.
Todd, now that Colin's back, we don't need you to sit in.
Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and next to me is the Doctor himself.
Hello.
And as always, we are joined by our producer, Richard.
Oh, hoy hoy.
Each week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC comics and movies while fielding questions from listeners like you. I almost said listens from questioners like you.
What do you do?
I mostly just fuck everything up forever.
Nope.
Well, I will blanket the city in endless winter. First Gotham and then the world. The Iceman cometh. Everybody chill. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. In this universe, there's only one absolute. Everything freezes.
It's really weird to hear those not in an Arnold voice.
Right? It almost sounds like it's almost good writing.
It almost sounds like dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, should I do it in Arnold's voice?
Yeah, go
Please.
for it. Yeah.
I'd rather not. Let's carry on. And in news,
Why bring it up?
Hyrax heading to Central City? Question mark?
So there's a character description for an upcoming episode of The Flash that seems to include the character before the character Hyrax, who's a really minor Green Arrow villain, but probably most famous as like the eco-terrorist that Oliver kind of falls in with right before he gets blown up and killed.
And outed as Pyrex's twin brother.
Sorry,
Great Tupperware, though.
Yeah, Pyrex, like the ovenware.
Yeah, or like the glass that you use for beakers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is Hyrax.
They just make bongs.
Wait, hold on. Is it like, oh, Hyrax?
Oh, hi, Rex.
Oh, Hyrax.
Oh, Hyrax.
But yeah, in the comics, Hyrax only shows up like a handful of times, but it's in the arc that ends with Oliver Queen dying. The best we can hope for is that Hyrax showing up in the Flash leads to the cancellation of Arrow. No, I don't know where it's going, but I think because it's such a relatively minor character, there's really no way to put like a bet on what's going to happen. But she's an eco-terrorist, so I bet you the story will have some sort of angle that way to it. But yeah,
Hyrax and Byrax. No?
But, no, that was good.
Oh, okay. John Ridley takes on the other history of the DC universe.
I'm super excited for this.
Quali Fox.
Yeah, so John Ridley is writing stories basically about like marginalized heroes. He wants to write like personal stories of heroes in the DC universe who aren't quote unquote like another white guy. So it would be like Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern.
Like the guy from The Daily Show?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Green Lantern, Jon
The
Stewart.
first time we made that joke.
I think Katana.
Me and PJ Fell have a lot in common, I guess.
Barry out.
The kid's cashing checks all over the country. You can tell Colin's back because the momentum's gone.
And the hatred has already started.
Yeah.
Let's do this thing.
Do you know what he's also written?
I don't actually.
12 Years a Slave.
Oh, okay. See, now that's interesting.
Right? That's why I was like, ooh, this is going to be real good.
Yeah, I'm not sure like what all the characters that he'll be like writing are, but I'm pretty sure that Jon Stewart and Katana are among them. But yeah, I'm really interested in it. So it's going to be, just examining, like I said, personal stories of those heroes that aren't just the stereotypical white hero archetype.
But wrote 12 Years a Slave, so who else is going to do something like that, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm excited for
person.
it. I think it'll be really neat. And, I think you can expect it to be more of like a character piece than, like an action set piece. So yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Tom King announces Sanctuary, a trauma center and safe haven for DC superheroes.
Yeah, this came out of the DC in DC event that was just happening.
That's right.
And
DC rocks the DC.
yes.
No.
They all went to Washington, D.C.
Cool.
Cool.
No doubt, no doubt.
I might go home now. I'll see you guys later.
So Tom King, who's currently the writer on Batman, but he's writing Mr. Miracle, all these really good books. He's sort of announced that they're going to be introducing this concept of the Sanctuary, which is
Sanctuary!
I mean, it's essentially like the DC Comics version of what like veterans like groups do, like where they offer like programs and like it's a place for people to talk about their shared experience on the front lines and things like that. And so I think the idea is that any story involving Sanctuary will be a way to like highlight like issues of like mental health and wellness and things like that. So it's another like new sort of subversion on the superhero thing, that like even these heroes that go out and like beat people up like 5-6 times a night, like that's a thing. Even if you think you're dealing with it, like that's got a weigh on you, let alone the heroes that routinely kill people, right? So this Sanctuary is going to be sort of an exploration of like how to unpack the unpleasant bits of the job of superheroing.
I like that. As long as it doesn't turn into like a safe space.
Well, that's not. We shouldn't make that a dirty word.
I just mean, come on, it's superheroes. At a certain point, like.
Well, no. The point is actually exactly that, though. I think is that it is meant to be like a safe space. It's where
it's a safe haven, actually, to be more precise.
I like it more like the Roman time church where it's Sanctuary.
You want them to be like Quasimodo?
Yes. Yes.
Hiding under a robe and a bell.
And like that's where villains can go and you can't touch them because they've been in Sanctuary.
Right. That's a very different pitch.
Yeah.
The superheroes can't touch them.
Mental health and wellness, or like getting away on a technicality. Those are two very different.
That's how I live my life, friend.
Jesus. Yes. Basically, it's going to be an exploration of like PTSD and like mental health in the superhero world. So I'm not sure exactly what context it'll take, if it's going to be its own book or if it'll just be like a concept that's woven into other existing books, but look for that to show up in future comics.
I'm just trying to unpack everything that just happened.
Okay.
Along with my bag from my journeys. Teen Titans Go to the movies. First teaser trailer and poster released.
Yeah, we talked about this one. This is like that like kids show, kids cartoon version of the
Which
Teen
is great.
Titans. Yeah, it's getting a feature film. It looks fun. You know, like it's a silly.
Have you seen the all the new stuff that's coming out?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it just looks fun.
It looks fun. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's not going to be like a revelatory cinematic experience for anyone, but it's like a fun like family thing that you can go see, and it's superheroes. Why not?
It'll be a matinee for sure. What? It's like when you go to like a Saturday afternoon movie with the family. That's
the quote on the poster. How did you know?
Is it actually?
No, it's not.
Oh, I was like, because I wrote it by accident. Got real drunk with those guys, and
it just says it'll be a matinee for sure. Colin Close, Dr. DC podcast.
Hey, DC execs, we know you're rarely listening anymore, since I routinely take vacations into the weirdest places on the planet. But if you are listening, please do use that quote. I give you 100% permission.
I think that's when we've hit our pinnacle for podcast, is when we're used as a quote on
Right.
like a movie. I think that's
When we get a blurb.
yeah, that's the pinnacle. You know what? I think
like on like a commercial for the movie. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the least movie a movie's ever been. The Dr. DC podcast.
Right.
well, like Nerdist is getting it now, so I feel like
What an unexpectedly good sequel to a hot garbage fire. That would be for Suicide Squad 2.
it just says
Are you going to give it that quote even before the movie is out?
I'm calling it unexpectedly good sequel for an otherwise hot garbage fire.
everything was good except fuck Henry Cavill. Colin Close.
I don't. Okay, I was gonna say I don't endorse that.
Everything is awful, Henry Cavill.
Oh, sorry, you're attributing that quote to Henry Cavill.
Yes.
Okay, so
that's him quoting back.
He's feeling real suicidal after hearing all those episodes of Colin.
look for us to falsify quotes from other people.
He's been listening to just the fuck Henry Cavill highlights from
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
Has it been to fuck Henry Cavill? I thought you just didn't like Superman.
I just don't like Superman, yeah.
Yeah, but he's attributing that specifically to Henry Cavill's performance in those movies.
That's not true. I just don't like Superman.
I thought you just didn't like Superman.
Really.
I think you're the one that doesn't like Henry Cavill.
Dun,
No,
dun,
not
dun.
specifically. No. Yeah.
It's because you want to be him.
Everything is awful. Signed.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
Do you want us to save you a seat at the sanctuary?
Sanctuary.
Yep.
He's
Still
taking
not
it
getting
seriously.
it.
Batman number 38, Bruce Wayne becomes Batman's latest villain? What?
Did you just say what and quat like the
Yeah.
French
Yeah, I
version?
did.
Yeah.
Quat. That's
Quat,
good.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So
How inclusive of you.
I know.
we finished up the like War of Jokes and Riddles arc, and then the latest one was this like Super Friends arc where it was Clark and Lois and Bruce and Selena like out on a double date and things like that. And now
Things like that.
well, if people haven't read it yet, I don't want to completely spoil it for them.
Oh, if the four of them are going out on a date, hilarity will ensue.
Kind of. So yeah, in this next arc, basically, Tom King is pitting Batman against Bruce Wayne. I mean, I'm weirdly, Batman is not a title that I'm actually like picking up hard copy right now.
Really?
I get Detective Comics. I'm not getting Batman. I do get like digital of Batman, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm never exactly sure what to expect with Tom King. He's a really like smart writer. I like that he takes stories sort of in unexpected directions. So, Batman and the Batman Bruce Wayne dynamic has been tread a lot. I'm interested to see how he unpacks what this like story means for the two kind of sides of that character.
The art for that looked real good too.
Yeah. I mean, that Batman book is really good. I don't want that to sound like I'm not endorsing it, but it's just like one of those ones where like I usually end up catching up on it like way later. I'll go and get digital copies of the arc and then read it in one go. It's not one that I'm getting as it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And a solo Cyborg movie is in the works, according to Joe Morton.
Yeah, remember like years ago where DC was like, here are all the movies we're going to make. And there was a solo Cyborg slotted for like 2020 or something like that.
That's actually happening.
Apparently it's still in the works. I doubt it's still in that 2020 slot, but it's not like off the table. I don't imagine that it's got a script or anything, but I think it's still one of those things where maybe they're throwing around story ideas or things like that.
It could still happen. I mean, Shazam is coming out apparently in 2019.
Yes.
So they're only working on it like as of sort of middle of last year. It's possible if they announce stuff.
I think I'd be surprised if they threw it in for 2020. Maybe I would think like a couple of years after that, because there's other things that I think they want out first, like the Batman or like that Deathstroke project, or
for sure, yeah,
even a sequel to Justice League or something like that. I would think they would want that. But yeah, so it's possible too that because they cut so much of like the Cyborg origin out of Justice League, that you could theoretically make a movie that sort of took place like almost concurrently with Batman v Superman Justice League, where you would just see Cyborg's origin and then leading up to where he was in that movie. You could possibly do that, or yeah, I don't know. It could probably go in a bunch of different directions.
David Esquire confirms Green Lantern Corps is still in the works.
Right. So similar like topic. I think the other 2020 in that original slate of like, these are the movies we're going to make was Green Lantern Corps. Yeah, these announcements are basically just, we haven't forgotten them. They aren't canceled, but
We haven't forgotten them, and we don't want you to either.
but otherwise, not too much has happened with them.
Do you have any new perspective on what you want from those from that movie?
Well, I mean, the clues in the title with Green Lantern Corps is that it's about more than one of the Green Lanterns, and
Which is interesting.
And ideally, the setting is space, not on Earth, so it doesn't commit some of the problems of that first Green Lantern movie.
Troublesome gravity and all that.
Well, no, I just mean like when you take like these like cosmic things and be like, oh, good, it's like a space cloud attacking a city, wonderful, like who cares?
Do you think that it's like a formation of the Green Lantern Corps, or like?
No, I think the Corps already exists, and we have the proof of that already because there was a Green Lantern in Justice League in that flashback sequence.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean,
it's not the formation of the Corps. I think you're just picking up, because they're like space cops, right? So like that organization's been around for a very long time, but you're just picking up with like Hal Jordan, John Stewart. Ideally, Sinestro is the bad guy.
Do you think it's like we're all going to band together and take down something, or do you think it's like the core, but it's gonna still kind of?
I think it would be great if they made it like a cop movie. They are space cops, so like,
I know.
Have a couple of partners, have them do a beat, have them try and figure out like. Try and piece the puzzles together. Maybe Sinestro is technically still a Green Lantern at this point, and they discover that he's, turning. Maybe this is the movie where he becomes a bad guy. Like, something like that, right?
I would love to see it, like, almost like a Guardians of the Galaxy, like, at least, like, sort of, at least temperament to it, and then, like, so there's shots of them, like, on some weird random planet, like, just busting, like, sort of low-level criminals.
Well, you get the opportunity, if you set it in space, to have sort of fantastic settings and interesting looking characters and aliens and all of that.
I think you need to go big though, because
make it like Star Wars, right? Where you walk into a cantina,
yeah,
it's like all the
but I think
different aliens.
You have to go a little over the top, or like the powers of the Green Lantern can get a little silly. Like I think that was another one of the issues, is like you're at this like dinner party with and suddenly like this guy has this big green hammer, and it becomes very sort of like way too tongue in cheek.
Well, and I think part of what might be good about having the character of Jon Stewart in there is that character is not only is he like ex-military, he's also like an architect, and in the comics he's known for having sort of like well thought out constructs. He doesn't just like Hal Jordan will often like make a fist, punch.
Yeah.
And I think Jon Stewart maybe is a little bit more of like a precision construct maker. I think you have the opportunity to see some really interesting uses of the ring by having them teamed up. Hal has the actual willpower to make literally anything, but Jon maybe puts more thought into what he's making. And I think that's a dynamic that would play well off each other. I mean, again, though, I'm basically just picturing like a lethal weapon in space.
Isn't that what everybody wants, though? Like
Hal is, which one is which? Is Murtaugh the loose cannon?
Yeah.
Hal is Murtaugh, and then Jon Stewart is Danny Glover.
Do you? Okay.
Getting too old for this shit.
Yeah,
but
just do lethal weapon in space. It's perfect.
Do you think I should just give up on my hope to have Idris Elba as Jon Stewart?
I mean, people keep pushing for it. I mean, I don't think give up. Although, since he's Heimdall in Marvel, I imagine they have some like
that characters go between all the time.
I'm getting too old for this ring.
Though?
Yeah, they definitely do.
Well, no, but I mean, since the MCU started, who has left the MCU for DC?
I don't know if
I think that framework is different. I think Marvel signs like exclusivity things and stuff like that. Like, I'm not talking beforehand where like Ben Affleck did that Daredevil movie or whatever, but since the actual like MCU started, is there any actor that's been in one of those movies that went to DC?
Ryan Reynolds?
No. He was in Green Lantern first, and then he went to Deadpool, but that was Fox. That wasn't MCU.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like that actual Marvel Studios, like the Avengers, Ant-Man, Iron Man, all that stuff. I'm pretty sure they have some sort of exclusivity thing in their contracts so that they don't leave and go do a DC movie.
What about, like, I mean, he's not a major character, but James Marsden was both Cyclops.
Fox. I mean, you're right. I mean, like, people have gone technically between those intellectual properties. I think legally, and now that Disney owns all of it, I think like legally that they might make that difficult for actors who would want to cross over. But I would still love to see Idris Elba do it. But I think maybe because he's Heimdall, that wouldn't happen.
Okay, fair enough.
And last but never least, Bendis' first book will be Superman.
Oh, of course it will. Of course it will.
Well, actually, what it is so Brian Michael Bendis, longtime Marvel guy, guy behind like a bunch of big events and Spider-Man and all of that sort of thing, is moving over to DC. He's going to be a DC exclusive writer, and his first issue will be Action Comics number 1000, which is a Superman comic. It's also the 1000th issue of Action Comics.
But, you know, it makes so much sense when you start thinking about the fact that, like, what this anniversary is for Superman.
Yeah. And
then they bring in, like Bendis. Of course, that's what...
Well, yeah, because this year is the 80th anniversary of Superman. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, you don't bring a writer like Bendis over and then be like...
During an anniversary year.
Well, but yeah, you don't bring him over and then be like, we want you to do like a series about Dr. Polaris. Like, you give him...
and Sinestro.
You give him the big character, you give him the big book. And
Yeah.
Action Comics is the... Maybe not in terms of sales, but certainly like sentimentally, Action Comics is the like flagship of DC.
Yeah.
It was the first one.
I want to know who he's working with. That's the only thing. 'Cause,
Like artist-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would be surprised if Jim Lee didn't have a hand in Action Comics 1000. He's one of the co-publishers, and he's like one of their big artists. I would imagine he'd want to put himself on that book in some fashion, like even if it was doing a backup story or doing a special cover or something like that.
Jeff Lemire.
That would be an interesting direction to go.
I'm just saying, like, Bendis and Jeff Lemire together.
Jeff Lemire is doing something for DC, though. He's, what's he working on?
He's working on a few things, I
Is he
think.
on the Terrifics? I can't remember what he's on, but Lemire is still doing DC stuff.
Exactly.
I don't know if his art is like mainstream enough for Action Comics, but I would love it. That would be really something.
I'm just thinking,
but that would be like a departure for them. That would be like a bold decision if they did that, I think.
Unless you, I mean, and
it's one thing to give him like Animal Man or Swamp Thing or something like that. It's quite another to be like, this is the big book. Like, draw it. Here you go.
You obviously know who my second choice would be.
Well, Tim Sale.
You goddamn right.
Do you want Tim Sale though if he's not working with Jeff Loeb?
If it's with Bendis, then yes, I'm okay with that.
Right.
I can deal with that. That is the dream team. But I think I just want somebody interesting. I want a heavy hitter for this first one.
Do you know what I want to see? I want to see this new writer take on a story where he's writing like an approximation of like a famous soccer player, because then it would be Bendis like Beckham.
Oh, you shut up. Thank you for listening to the last episode of the Dr. DC podcast. Official end
We didn't
point.
even get through the fucking news.
Jesus.
Come on, that was
my favorite
good.
part of the episode. We couldn't even get through it.
I'm practicing dad jokes.
Oh, that's you can't throw that.
You can't practice those.
You can't throw the dad card.
You never practice those. You just do them.
Have you listened to this podcast?
You just do them. You don't practice them. You just do them. Don't make excuses. Be a dad.
Wow, this got real motivational and yet kind of creepy and scary.
I'm more scared.
No, dads are never afraid of anything.
Jesus. How would you know?
Edit point.
Yeah, there we go.
And we're back.
I love how all of our episodes never get edited, and there's just the word edit point in all of them.
It's a drinking game. Come on.
Yeah, oh, fair play. So this week's theme is Cold Snap, and it comes at a great time.
Cold snap.
Because it's +6 in the capital city.
I know. Yeah, I love that when you pitched this, you were like, get it? Because it's cold.
And then the weather immediately
changed. There's just like,
so if you ever hate the weather because it's too cold,
just record an episode of
get a hold of Dr. DC and ask him to change the weather for you.
Yeah, apparently I have some sort of latent weather controlling ability. And by that I mean whatever I think it's going to be, it'll be the opposite.
So the next episode's called Richard's Poor.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, because I would get money then.
Oh.
I wasn't trying to be depressing. Jesus Christ.
Okay. At any rate, yeah, Cold Snap. That's the theme. So we're going to be
Cold snap.
Going to be talking about like cold/ice/frozen themed heroes and villains. Yeah. So what do we have first?
Let's chill out,
Man.
Cool party. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Sorry about the door. Party over.
Always winterize your pipes. That's an actual line from that movie.
That's so awful.
A laundry service that delivers. Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Can we just move on to Twitter?
Yes, let's do
Are you
it.
done now?
We got a whole episode to go. We're going to get doing it.
Christ. Can you... it's Talking Superman
All right.
wants to know, can you explain how Captain Cold got his cold gun?
Yeah.
With cold hard cash, duh.
So Captain Cold...
See, that's how you do it.
No excuses. Champions.
No practicing, just doing it.
No, I didn't like it. I liked mine.
What, a surprise that I liked Colin's joke and no one laughed at yours?
Captain Cold, unlike a lot of villains or heroes that have like a piece of technology, like Captain Cold has a cold gun. Most of the people that have some sort of piece of technology, they made it. Like they're a scientist of some kind. Leonard Snart, aka Captain Cold, is not. He's just like a crook. He's a thug. He holds up banks and things like that. And then in I think in the original adventure, what happens is he reads some sort of study that posits that the energy emitted by a cyclotron could potentially interfere with the Flash's speed. And he steals a cyclotron and kind of like jerry-rigs it into like a gun. And then that gun projects cold. Now, there's an important thing here. The gun doesn't shoot ice. Some like villains actually shoot ice. What Captain Cold does, he refers to himself as the man who mastered absolute zero. So the gun actually like it projects cold. It robs the energy out of molecules to bring them down to absolute zero. Now, the effect of that is sometimes like ice forms or things like that. But the reason that he can affect the Flash is that, you know, the Flash can vibrate his molecules at super speed to move through things. What's the opposite of moving at super speed is absolute zero, where there's no movement. So that's what makes him such a good villain for the Flash, is that his technologically granted ability is the exact opposite of the Flash's superpower.
It's true.
In Forever Evil, where a bunch of villains have to team up to defeat the crime syndicate, Captain Cold has to get his hands on a new cold gun, and he manages to build one. And Lex Luthor says, "How did you manage to do that? Like, you're an idiot, basically. Yeah. I'm a scientific genius. How could you possibly do this?" And Snart basically just says that he memorized what the pieces were and what order they go in and what the materials are.
Which is really interesting that you say that, because one, the Flash TV show has a different beginning, the way that he gets that weapon, which is that Cisco Ramon creates it to specifically stop the Flash in case he had to, and then Leonard steals it. But there's an interesting scene where he specifically like learns all the pieces, because he makes Cisco remake the gun, and he just goes like, I memorized every piece of this.
So it's that thing where like he's not the smartest guy in the room, but he's
quick on his feet, and he like,
but you know, like
street smarts.
It's that idea that like not all intelligent people are intelligent in the same way. You know, like Leonard Snart presumably would not do well like academically, but he's a guy who's clearly got like a bit of a gift for engineering. But he's sort of self-taught. It's like he's MacGyvering things, but he's remembering the components. But he can make a gun that projects absolute cold, and he can take on the Flash. So it's not a superpower for him, but he's quite gifted that way. But that's how he gets his cold gun.
He has eidetic memory?
No. He's made himself.
He just worked hard.
He's worked hard to remember. Okay. Like, he didn't just look at it once and remember it all. He like would take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together, like over and over until he could do it.
So he has OCD. His superpower is a compulsion.
Not even that. I think that it's just he has so much drive. It's the reason why he's so successful, and he's really good at adapting as well. Like, there's constant situations where like the Flash just lets him do whatever he wants, because he just can continuously adapt the situation and bend so that it's like, look, I won't kill anybody, so just let me keep, like, he just finds ways to continue doing what he does, which is different than most super.
And I think too, he can identify his own shortcomings, right? Like, I think he goes to the trouble of learning how to build that thing in his sleep, because he knows if anything happened to it, he couldn't, unless he, you know, committed it to memory, or unless he, you know.
I think that's what makes him such a good villain for the Flash.
It's a very like blue collar, like that's a guy who's like, I mean, he's doing it for all the wrong reasons, and he's a criminal, but he's like literally pulling himself up by his bootstraps. You can imagine if he just took that dedication and put it into something legitimate, like he would be very successful.
But I think that like what makes him such a good villain is that he also understands that the Flash is more powerful than him, and has respect for that. And I think that's why he doesn't generally get caught in situations with his pants down, basically, you know?
Well, and like I said, I think last week, the Rogues very rarely have aspirations beyond like a big score, you know, like they just like hold up banks or things like that. Like they don't really want, or they want to take over the underworld of a city. They don't want to be the mayor or like rule the world, or, you know, explode a monument or anything like that.
That's for
like
Batman villains.
Yeah, exactly. Like their aspirations are much more like realistic, or just
Which I think goes back to our last episode, where I think that like the types of characters, the types of villains that each superhero gets matches more of that superhero.
Yeah.
But the Flash is not doing these gigantic, like, saving the world things as much as he is just trying to save a small city.
Yeah.
And I think his same thing with all of his villains. Everything's very insular.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because the Flash's powers are so, like, cosmic, but he's often, just tasked with, like, keeping, like, day-to-day life, like, manageable for the citizens of Central City, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, hopefully that answers that. That's how Captain Cold got his cold gun.
If revenge is a dish best served cold, then put on your Sunday finest. It's time to feast.
So many quotes.
This is almost isn't even fair because he just has them all pulled up on the screen.
I totally do. You're not sending me to the cooler.
Can you be cool, bird boy?
I'm afraid my condition has left me cold to your plea of mercy.
All right, everybody chill out. We're going over to Facebook.
Cool party.
There's 3 of us. It's not hardly a party. Gordon Rugg asks, is Mr. Freeze Dr. Freeze before he finishes his doctorate degree?
Do you know so this is the opposite of the Captain Cold thing, is that Victor Freeze is like he has a doctorate. He's a scientist. He's like a cryo engineer. He's working on this this technology that will be able to safely freeze people and then revive them, and it's like for like medical procedures and that. And we know famously he's like sort of researching it to save his wife
and also her brother Walter Disney.
Oh God. But yeah, he calls himself Mr. Freeze. I mean,
that's modest. I like that.
It's funny because a lot of people that like pick Doctor in their name, there's like a reason they've picked Doctor. Like maybe they
it's
are one.
Oh, is there?
Like that.
Is there?
I think there's quite a few
it's
examples
they're
of that.
not.
Is there? How would you know?
What are you saying? I don't have a doctorate
in anything, actually. Yes.
Fine, out me. I'm just Mr. DC.
Dr. DC was my father.
Dr. DC was my father. I wanted to be an actor.
I didn't want to follow.
That's why I'm just Mr. DC.
I didn't want to follow in the family business of becoming a doctor.
But yeah, so Victor Freeze, in spite of holding a doctorate, goes by Mr. Freeze. I mean, there's no like real deep meaning behind that, but it does bring up an interesting fact that, like I said, a lot of origin stories have to do with like experiments gone wrong. And if you're writing a story, then like it's not often like the janitor walked by when the experiment went wrong and he got the powers. It's that the scientist tests something on themselves, or they're the ones caught in the explosion because they're the ones mixing the chemicals or whatever it is. So often you'll find that supervillains have some sort of scientific background. But and so in the case of Victor Freeze, that's absolutely true. In the case of like Icicle Sr., that's true. In the case of Captain Cold, it's not. But yeah, you can't use their like Mr. or Doctor. You can't use their title to always figure it out. Pamela Eiley has a doctorate, but she doesn't go by Dr. Ivy, just Poison Ivy.
Dr. DC will be back after this quick break.
Hello, I'm Michael Caine.
Hello, I'm Michael Caine.
No. I'm Michael Caine. Hello.
And as a representative of the Michael Caines of the multiverse, this episode of the Dr. DC podcast is brought to you by our sponsor,
Great Lakes
Grimm & Company.
I personally, on my Earth, all the famous actors have a big beard. So on my Earth, I'm the Michael Caine that uses his delicious beard oil. I like the scent Your Love because it sounds good in my accent.
And for me, I like the pine tar soap because it's exactly what I smelled like as a baby.
On my Earth, we don't have beards. We have wonderfully stylish hair. So that's why I use the Noble Selves hairstyling cream. It's got medium light holding with a soft feel. Perfect for everyday use or when you're kissing your sweet princess goodnight.
When I was in Burma, I saw a child playing with beard oil the size of a tangerine. The Great Lakes Grooming Company makes products that are easy and ready to use, rain or shine. All their products are purposefully designed and environmentally responsible.
Wait, are you saying that if it's raining, you could still use this product?
I would put it on inside, but then you could go out in the rain.
You could go out in the rain and have little water droplets land on you, and you're all right.
You'll be perfectly all right.
Is it rain repellent then?
It's not like Scotch Garden, but I imagine that yes, they are.
Does it smell better than Scotch Garden then?
Scotch gardening is a little bit different. That's how they tend the vegetables in Scotland.
So is this some sort of Chinese crap?
No, this product is handmade in Canada, ready for adventure wherever one may find themselves.
So whether you're in some sort of diner in Paris.
Well, now you'd be in a diner in Italy.
Oh,
sitting on the banks of the Arno.
So if I wanted a product like this, what might I do to make it worth my while?
For the listeners of this podcast, you get 10% off on Great Lakes Grooming's regular price products by going to greatlakesgrooming.com and using the promo code Dr. DC Podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it's greatlakesgrooming.com and the promo code, I'm going to spell it out so you get it. It's DRDC Podcast.
I can't watch you use this crap anymore. You have to use Great Lakes Grooming.
I'm Michael Caine.
No, I'm Michael Caine.
No, I'm Michael Caine.
I'm still Michael Caine.
You've been listening to Michael Caine this whole time. You obviously know who it is.
Hereby disbanding the Council of Michael Caines.
I'm Michael Caine.
Here.
Back to the show.
And we're back.
Oh God, I hate us so much.
What do you mean, us?
So Evan on Facebook.
Oh, that Evan.
Says, hello, Doc. I just watched Young Justice, which was an amazing show. And I was wondering if you could explain who Icicle Jr. and Sr. are in the comics. Which hero's villain are they?
Yeah, okay. So I did just briefly mention Icicle Sr. So Icicle Sr., his real name is like Joar Mahkent. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, but he's meant to be like of vaguely European ancestry.
It kind of sounds like you said Jorel Mahkent.
I know it does kind of sound like that, doesn't it?
Someone's just like, I don't know. They're looking at it like a Superman comic. I don't know.
Jorel Mahkent. Martha. I think, but yeah, I think he's meant to be vaguely European. And anyway, he's like a scientist that comes to America, and then he's found dead. And the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, is kind of trying to track down the killer. And at the same time, this villain called Icicle with a cold, like an ice gun, shows up and is committing crimes. And it's like a few issues later that you discover that Joar Mahkent is Icicle. He wasn't killed at all. So he's a guy that does not have superpowers. He has like an ice gun, and he wears a suit that protects him from like the harmful effects of the ice gun and the cold and things like that.
Like a parka?
No, it's like a special like more sciencey, and it makes him look like an icicle.
Oh, that's
just long and pointy.
No, it's not like clan hood pointy or anything like that. It actually like it looks like
he looks like the penguin's nose.
No, he just looks like he's covered in ice. He almost looks like visions of Jack Frost or things like that kind of thing.
Now it's time for Ice-T to go back to his true form.
Ice-T's true form.
And in 2018, you made the first Rick and Morty reference.
That's right.
So Icicle Sr., then his original, like the hero that he was matched up against was the Golden Age Green Lantern. Icicle Sr. is killed. When did he get killed? Crisis on Infinite Earths, maybe? But in using his like ice gun or whatever, it like it's the radiation from it or something like that affected his DNA, kind of mutated his DNA. So when he had a son, Cameron Mahkent, Cameron actually became a metahuman. So he actually had like an inborn ability to create like ice and snow and cold and things like that. And and it kind of makes him look almost like albino. He's like very kind of pale, and that's Icicle Jr. He is primarily a villain, like an adversary of groups like Infinity Inc. or things like that, which are, of course, made up of like the children of the original Justice Society members. So in a way, it kind of carries on. So if Icicle Sr. was, went head to head with the original Green Lantern, then Icicle Jr. went head to head with like Jade and Obsidian and like Alan Scott's kids. So there is a bit of a generational thing there. But yeah, the primary difference between them is that Icicle Sr. used technology. That technology unknowingly affected him, and then it made his son a metahuman. So they both use cold and ice. Obviously, they both take the name Icicle, but they have different sources for those powers.
So hold on, his son metahuman? Which human?
Terrible.
But
actually, well, I can tell you who he met. Icicle Jr. Ends up, I think, married to the Tigress, Artemis Croc, who is the daughter of the Sportsmaster. So there's a little bit of
Sportsmaster.
Do you know what's funny? Sportsmaster is legitimately like a joke villain, except in Young Justice. They make Sportsmaster so badass in that show, it makes you really like think that character's cool. He's basically a guy who's like mastered every sport. So he's like an expert javelin thrower. He's super acrobatic. He's like...
Yeah, no, even the most basic reader could probably understand what a sportsmaster is.
No, but like he like mastered sports.
He's like really good.
I don't think
we got it. He mastered sports.
Colin, he mastered sports. Listen to me.
He's a master sporter.
Yeah. But at any rate, that's the human that Cameron Mahkent met. Because there's a little bit of like villain...
It's funny that she's a tigress, but her last name is Croc.
Oh, because that's a different animal. Yeah.
Is Icicle Jr. Just like trying to get Icicle Sr. back because Mario captured him and put him in a cage?
Yes. How did you know?
I wondered.
Oh God! But yeah, that's Icicle Sr.
That's a Donkey Kong Jr. folks joke for you folks.
That's a super deep cut. Yeah, I mean those are
Donkey Kong Jr. was a video game in the Nintendo.
Be sure to tune in to Dr. Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong Jr. came out in 1980.
Oh,
the original Donkey Kong.
Yes, I was waiting for it. There it is. But yeah, those characters aren't ones that show up super, super often. They're a little bit...
Super often.
Yeah, they're a little more obscure, but that's the broad strokes of Icicle Sr. and Jr.
You Mighty Morphin Super Awesome!
Was that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
You goddamn right.
Oh, okay.
So Adam Upper asks, I'd ask about the Batman TAS Batman, but there's no way you're not talking about him.
I have to imagine that what Adam meant to type was talking about the Batman, the animated series, Mr. Freeze. Because the Batman, the animated series, Batman didn't have cold powers.
Maybe he's just super cool.
But the Batman animated series, Mr. Freeze, is like a very important version of Mr. Freeze to talk about. When Mr. Freeze first appeared in the comics, first of all, he went by Mr. Zero at first. And he was just
he
a
went
scientist.
From zero to hero.
He had some of the same like ailment. Like he was a scientist that got caught in like a chemical that meant that he couldn't survive in above sub-zero temperatures. But he was basically just like stealing diamonds and things like he had no real like raison d'etre.
Until
Batman the Animated Series. There's an episode called Heart of Ice.
One of the best episodes.
And it's the introduction of the origin story that we all just take for granted now. The idea that his wife is sick and that he's got her frozen. He's trying to like find a cure, and he gets like fired from his job, and he gets attacked, and that's when the accident happens that doses him in the chemical, and that all he wants to do is save his wife. And that's his motive. That's his like villainous motivation. All of that came from that Heart of Ice episode. And then, like, for better or worse, it was adapted in Batman and Robin, where...
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Take 2 of these. Call me in the morning. But that's just the Mr. Freeze origin now. And it started on that cartoon and then got folded into the main continuity of the comics because they were like, oh, I mean, that's way better than what Mr. Freeze was doing up until that point. He was just like a gimmick villain before then, but that story gave him some actual like pathos and things like that. It made him like three-dimensional. It made you actually kind of root for him in a way because he's sort of misunderstood. He's been kind of thrust into this role of being the villain.
Right, and using Arnold Schwarzenegger makes it 100% less hokey.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Come on, guys.
No, I mean, that's why I said for better or worse. That movie's not the best. In fact, it might be but that idea of that origin, like, could you imagine if they made that movie and that wasn't the Mr. Freeze origin, but they just put Mr. Freeze in it? It would be even worse somehow, even hokier. So yeah, I mean, in that way, that Heart of Ice episode, which I believe won an Emmy,
it was amazing. Yeah,
it is one of many things that were considered like exceptional about that show, and then folded into main continuity later on. And so I think one of like the best and most lasting changes that came out of that animated universe was what it did for Mr. Freeze as a character. It really gave him some depth and made him important again, not just a guy in like a weird suit like he was in the 60s or whatever. Yeah.
And last but not least, Matt Ray. Is he still able to reproduce, or is he shooting blanks due to the cold? Who is he?
I'm
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Oh. Well, but believe it or not, there's no definitive answer for this. So part of the reason is that what I just described.
He's actually shooting blanksicles.
Jesus. Part of the reason is what I just described. Mr. Freeze's new origin story means that he's so kind of...
Richard, get off your phone. Be a part of the conversation.
Okay.
It means that he's so devoted to his wife's and so kind of obsessed with curing her that he wouldn't involve himself with anyone else. So he hasn't had the opportunity to do anything like that. And then the one time that his wife got revived went horribly because he tried to use the Lazarus pit to bring her back, but the mingling of the chemicals in the Lazarus pit with like the cryochemicals and whatever that was in her blood turned her into
a very naggy wife who complained about the dishes still being in the sink.
It's 2018, Colin. It turned her into a supervillain called Lazara, who had the ability to raise the dead, and she went crazy.
It's 2018, Doc. It's called just doing your own thing.
No, she was legitimately crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
yes, I remember that.
They also didn't get an opportunity to test that out. I mean, everything else about Mr. Freeze still works. He still has lungs. He still breathes in that. He just has to do it in sub-zero temperatures. So I imagine he could probably still have sex and reproduce. He's just got to do it outside in the winter.
Or in a freezer.
Or in a freezer, yeah.
Which makes me go to a surprise question from, let's say, his name is Jerry Weddy. Is Mr. Freeze hairless all over?
Well, he's not completely hairless. He has eyebrows. I mean, in the 60s, he had like orange eyebrows. Very prominent, very large orange eyebrows.
David Bowie playing this character at the
if
time?
if you watch the old...
I did not. Yeah,
the
you're
old
right.
Adam West Batman.
Oh, yeah, nope.
The way that they would do Mr. Freeze on that show is like when it was Otto Preminger the one time or whatever, he was like painted blue, but then he had these big bushy like ginger like eyebrows.
To pronounce how cold he was?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it was just for contrast.
If he was constantly saying that cold, wouldn't he be hairless though?
Well, no. If anything, wouldn't he grow more hair? I don't know actually, but no, I don't believe he's completely hairless. He's certainly bald, but I'm pretty sure he has eyebrows. Although he's often wearing goggles. I think you could reasonably draw him as completely hairless, and it would make sense.
Or you could go the exact opposite way with it too, and he'd be the abominable snowman.
The one thing I will say is that it's not like a character thing, you know, like
not yet.
If you drew, actually, Mr. Freeze in the New 52 had a little bit of hair. If you drew him with hair, I don't think anyone would be like, "That's not Mr. Freeze." You know, like,
hey, guy, chill out.
His tragic backstory is that his wife is sick and he loses his hair. Like no one, he doesn't have like alopecia or anything.
He
like
loses
that.
his hair due to stress. I'm guessing. or some sort of
No,
radiation?
he does still have the hair, but I think probably being doused in chemicals and that affects that in some way.
You think?
You know, he's generally bald, but I don't know if he might have chest hair or something.
Okay, well, if he got doused in chemicals and that made him lose his head hair, then that would probably make him lose the rest of his hair on his body too then. So there you go. There's your answer.
Okay.
Finally, Colin, some expertise. Colin, how often have you been doused in chemicals?
If anybody knows about chemicals in men's hair.
0 times. That's why I have so much body hair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So I mean, that's a weird note to end on, but I'm pretty sure that Mr. Freeze can sexually reproduce, and yeah, I guess he's likely hairless.
That's a Dr. DC podcast for you.
And we're back.
If you want to send us some questions, much like the ones that you heard today, all you need to do is go to our social media accounts.
Yeah, and actually, before we list them off, if you specifically for next week,
because we already actually have that plan.
yeah, if you specifically for next week have
Speaking of hair,
questions related to like Green Lantern, we're doing a special team up episode. With,
not what I was thinking you were going to say.
with with the Lantern cast. So if you have questions about like Green Lantern or the emotional spectrum or how the rings work or anything like that, like send those in. We're teaming up with the what they describe as the foremost and first Green Lantern podcast.
The best and only.
Yeah, that's right. So us and the Lantern cast will be doing a Green Lantern episode next week.
Boom.
And you can send those questions in
Boom. Facebook at
Dr. DC Podcast,
Twitter at
Dr. DC,
email at
drdcpodcast@gmail.com,
Instagram likes at
Dr. DC Podcast.
You can also send questions there.
No, you can't. Don't do it.
You can also send questions via our website, drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
Oh, that's right. And make sure you go to iTunes or all of those other different platforms where you can download our podcast and give us reviews. We would love to see some of those
Rate,
reviews.
review, and subscribe.
Yes.
You can give us a 5-star review and what Colin does, or really just anything, and I will read it, or Colin will read
We're gonna get him to read them now.
it. I depending on what they are.
We're slowly phasing out your role.
Yeah.
That's okay. That makes sense. I'm still trying to figure
We
out
keep
what I do
finding out that
here.
we can do it without him, so I don't.
The trick is to never go away.
Yeah, exactly. Or be named after the podcast.
Well, yeah. Have some sort of level of expertise. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh God, I'm so sad now.
Oh, we love you, buddy.
Oh, job well done.
Yeah. Send your questions, and if you don't have Green Lantern questions, send those questions anyway, because we'll get to them eventually.
Absolutely.
I missed you guys.
We missed you too. Do you remember how to end an episode?
Oh yeah, with some kind of sign off.
Adios.
No, I always go a size smaller.
Of course,
Makes
he
me
does.
look slimmer.
Here we go.
Jesus Christ.
God damn it.
Goodbye.
Aquaman, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure. They are men of might.
Goodbye, Michael Caine.
I love you, Michael Caine.
I love you more, Michael Caine.
Oh, what are you doing there, Michael Caine?
Oh no, Michael Caine.
I've never been touched like this before, Michael Caine.
I sure hope the microphone is off now.
Don't touch my cocaine, Michael Caine.
Oh, hey, that's Michael Caine. Michael Caine. Michael Caine. Bye, Michael Caine.
Bye-bye, Michael Caine.
Michael Caine papaya?
I said goodbye, my
I
cocaine.
thought you said papaya. Michael Caine.
I snorted up all my cocaine, Michael Caine.
Oh, that's good, Michael Caine. Michael Caine.
This can't be what they had in mind.
I can't feel my face, Michael Caine.
Oh, here, let me hear your. Let me touch your face. Is that like touching my own face? Cause you're Michael Caine.
No, I can't feel my face. If
When
my
I'm
face
with
is your face.
you.
No,
On
but,
my earth, I'm also the weekend.
but it's Wednesday.
And Wednesday night is the night that we make love. I'm also the flight of the Conchords.
My name's Brett.
Was there nothing good on the telly?
When I get down to just my socks, you know what time it is. That's why they call it business socks. Oh.
It's business time, baby.
It's business time.